What would make a simple wooden box be considered one of the greatest symbols of divine presence? The Ark of the Covenant, mysterious and sacred, was created under precise instructions given by God to Moses on Mount Sinai, as recounted in Exodus 25:10-22. More than just a relic, it was the physical proof that the divine dwelled among the people of Israel, reflecting an unbreakable covenant. Every detail, from the gold that covered it to the cherubim on its top, had deep and intentional significance, ensuring its importance for generations. But what exactly did this ark contain that made it so valuable? And what role did these items play in maintaining the connection between God and his people? Inside the ark were the tablets of the law, representing the divine covenant, Aaron's rod that budded, a symbol of priestly selection, and a jar of manna, a reminder of divine provision during the journey through the wilderness. These items, mentioned in Hebrews 9:4, were not merely static symbols, but living reminders of God's protection, provision, and continuous presence. This detailed construction went beyond being a simple object. It became a guide for the people of Israel. As recorded in Numbers 10 verse 33-36, the ark led the way during their journey through the wilderness, moving ahead of the people. When God's cloud lifted from the tabernacle, it was time for the ark to advance, symbolizing that God was leading every decision and movement. Moses invoked divine protection at the start of each journey, saying, "Rise up, Lord. May your enemies be scattered. May those who hate you flee before you." Numbers 10:35, reinforcing their trust in heavenly guidance. Additionally, the place where the ark rested within the camp was no accident. It was positioned at the center, constantly reminding the people of Israel that God was among them as their leader and protector. Every movement of the ark carried deep meaning. Going out to battle was accompanied by its presence, and returning to camp reaffirmed the security that God provided to his people. The Levites, responsible for carrying the ark, performed a sacred ritual, making it clear the respect and reverence for this divine object. The Ark of the Covenant was not only a symbol of divine power and authority, but also of communion. Between the cherubim that crowned the ark, God spoke with Moses, as narrated in Exodus 25:22, showing that the divine was always accessible and near to his people. While the leadership of Moses and Aaron guided the people through the desert, internal challenges arose, with important figures like Korah, son of Izhar, from the tribe of Levi, rising against the divinely established authority. Korah, along with Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab from the tribe of Reuben, gathered a group of 250 men, all leaders and respected princes among the people, as noted in Numbers 16:2. The revolt was based on the claim that the entire congregation was holy, and that Moses and Aaron had unjustly placed themselves in a superior position. The revolt gained momentum, and Korah, Dathan, Abiram, and their followers openly challenged Moses and Aaron, as seen in Numbers 16:3, accusing them of exalting themselves without just cause. However, Moses, recognizing the gravity of the situation, humbled himself by falling to the ground and sought God's guidance. He proposed that the next day, Korah and his allies should bring censers before the Lord, and God himself would show whom he had chosen to be in his presence. Numbers 16 verse 5. Moses had faith that the Lord would reveal his will and prove his authority. The next day, the rebels came before the tabernacle with their censers, as ordered. Moses then warned the congregation to move away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, because God's judgment was about to take place. Moses declared that if these men died a natural death, then the Lord had not sent him. But if the earth opened and swallowed them, it would be a sign that they had challenged divine authority. As described in Numbers 16:30, as soon as Moses finished speaking, the ground opened up and swallowed the rebellious leaders, their families, and all their belongings. This terrible judgment was a clear sign of God's wrath against rebellion and disobedience. The people, terrified, fled after witnessing the event, fearing that the same fate might befall them. A fire sent by the Lord consumed the 250 men who had offered incense, reaffirming the holiness and seriousness of divine authority. To eliminate any remaining doubt about God's chosen leader, the Lord commanded that each tribe bring a staff with the name of its leader engraved, and Aaron's staff miraculously blossomed and produced almonds as a clear sign of his selection. Numbers 17:8 describes this miracle that solidified Aaron's leadership and the Levites' role. With the rebellion suppressed, the people of Israel continued their journey toward the Promised Land. Upon reaching the banks of the Jordan River, the Lord again demonstrated his power. Under Joshua's leadership, the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant entered the waters of the Jordan, and the river, which was overflowing due to the harvest, stopped flowing. The waters parted, allowing the people to cross on dry ground, as described in Joshua 3:5-16. This miracle was a powerful reminder that, just as with the Red Sea, God was leading and protecting his people. The 12 stones taken from the Jordan served as a permanent memorial for the Israelites, as described in Joshua 4:7. This symbolic act was essential for preserving the memory of God's deeds and passing down faith from generation to generation. After the 12 men carried the stones to the camp, the priests who carried the Ark of the Covenant came up from the Jordan, and as soon as their feet touched the opposite shore, the river's waters returned to their place, filling it once again. This miracle not only confirmed the divine presence but also signaled that the Israelites were ready to take possession of the Promised Land. On the 10th day of the first month, the people camped at Gilgal, near Jericho. Joshua 4:19. The crossing of the Jordan was not just a physical event. It represented a renewal of the covenant between God and his people, with the stones serving as a testament to God's faithfulness. Now, the conquest of Canaan, the land promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, was about to begin. The Ark of the Covenant continued to be the spiritual center of the Israelite community, symbolizing God's presence in their lives. The first challenge they faced in the Promised Land was the fortified city of Jericho. God spoke to Joshua, assuring him that he had already delivered the city and its king into his hands. Joshua 6:2. The instructions God gave to Joshua were unusual. The warriors were to march around the city once a day for 6 days, carrying the Ark of the Covenant, followed by 7 priests blowing ram's horn trumpets. On the 7th day, the strategy changed. The Israelites marched around the city 7 times, and at the end of the final lap, the priests blew their trumpets and the people shouted loudly. Joshua 6:20 recounts that as soon as the trumpet sounded and the people shouted, the walls of Jericho miraculously collapsed, allowing the Israelites to invade and conquer the city. This event not only demonstrated God's power, but also emphasized the importance of obedience to his instructions. The conquest of Jericho was a milestone not just militarily but spiritually for the Israelites. The presence of the ark during the battle symbolized that victory did not depend on military strength, but on trust and obedience to God. The victory at Jericho set a precedent for future conquests in the Promised Land, underscoring that faithfulness to God was essential for success. However, the story of the Ark of the Covenant was far from over. At a critical moment during the period of the Judges, the Ark was captured by the Philistines, as narrated in 1 Samuel 4. The Israelites, mistakenly trusting in the Ark as a good luck charm, brought it to the battlefield in hopes of securing victory. However, this misplaced faith resulted in a devastating defeat and the capture of the Ark. The Philistines, believing they had conquered the God of Israel, took the Ark to Ashdod and placed it in the temple of their god Dagon. However, the Ark's presence brought disaster to the Philistines. The next morning, the statue of Dagon was found fallen face down before the Ark of the Lord. 1 Samuel 5:3. Moreover, the Philistines were afflicted with tumors, and a plague of rats spread through their cities, causing great suffering in Ashdod, Gath, and Ekron. Recognizing the calamity the Ark was causing, the Philistines consulted their priests and diviners, who advised them to return the Ark to the Israelites, along with a guilt offering of 5 gold tumors and 5 gold rats, representing the 5 Philistine cities. Thus, the Ark was placed on a new cart and sent back to Israel, a clear sign that even God's enemies acknowledged his power. The cows, defying their natural instinct to return to their calves, went directly to Beth Shemesh, an Israelite city. The inhabitants, who were working in the field, were overjoyed to see the Ark coming home. 1 Samuel 6:13 recounts that, while they were harvesting wheat in the valley, they lifted their eyes and rejoiced upon seeing the ark returning. However, their joy was overshadowed by a tragic incident. Some men from Beth Shemesh looked inside the ark, disobeying divine laws. As a result, 70 of them were struck down, highlighting the holiness and power of God's presence. The Lord struck down some of the men of Beth Shemesh because they had looked into the ark of the Lord. 1 Samuel 6:19. Following this tragedy, the ark was taken to Kiriath Jearim, where it remained for 20 years in the house of Abinadab. During this time, Israel experienced a period of spiritual renewal. The prophet Samuel urged the people to abandon foreign gods and turn back to the Lord with all their hearts. In response, the Israelites turned away from idols and rededicated themselves to God, as mentioned in 1 Samuel 7 verse 3. The presence of the ark in Kiriath Jearim, along with Samuel's spiritual leadership, resulted in an era of peace and victories over their enemies. When the Philistines heard about the assembly of Israelites at Mizpah for fasting and confessing their sins, they launched an attack on Israel. Samuel cried out to the Lord for protection, and God responded with powerful thunder, throwing the Philistines into confusion, leading to their defeat. While Samuel was sacrificing the burnt offering, the Philistines drew near to engage Israel in battle. But that day the Lord thundered with loud thunder against the Philistines. 1 Samuel 7, verse 9-10. With the defeat of the Philistines and the renewal of their covenant with God, Israel enjoyed a period of stability. Although the ark remained in Kiriath Jearim, it continued to be a powerful symbol of God's presence and favor. This period of peace and prosperity under Samuel's leadership paved the way for the transition to monarchy, culminating in the anointing of Saul as Israel's first king. However, it was during the reign of David that the Ark of the Covenant regained its central role. David sought to centralize the worship of God and unite the nation, and thus decided to bring the Ark to Jerusalem, the new capital of Israel. The first attempt to transport the Ark, however, was marked by a tragic incident. Uzzah, one of the men tasked with guiding it, touched it to steady it when the oxen pulling the cart stumbled, and he was immediately struck down by God. The Lord's anger burned against Uzzah because of his irreverent act. Therefore God struck him down. 2 Samuel 6:7. This event caused David to reconsider the situation and fear the power associated with the ark. As a result, he decided to take the ark to the house of Obed-Edom, where it remained for 3 months. During that time, Obed-Edom's household was greatly blessed. The ark of the Lord remained in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite for 3 months, and the Lord blessed him and his entire household. 2 Samuel 6 verse 11. This clear sign of blessing encouraged David to attempt once more to bring the ark to Jerusalem, this time with reverence and in accordance with divine instructions. He organized a great celebration for the second attempt at transport, ordering the Levites to carry the ark on their shoulders with poles, as prescribed by God. To the sound of music, dancing, and sacrifices, the ark was finally successfully brought to Jerusalem. When those carrying the ark of the Lord had taken 6 steps, David sacrificed bulls and fattened calves. 2 Samuel 6:13. The arrival of the ark in Jerusalem was marked by great joy, and David danced before the Lord with all his might, expressing his devotion and reverence. However, not everyone shared in this joy. Michal, his wife and the daughter of Saul, watched David's dance and despised him in her heart, considering his behavior unworthy of a king. When she confronted David, expressing her disapproval, David reaffirmed his devotion to God above any royal dignity. David said to Michal, 2 Samuel 6:21, emphasizing the importance of putting God first, even in the face of criticism. The ark was then placed in a special tent that David had prepared in Jerusalem. He offered burnt offerings and fellowship offerings before the ark and blessed the people in the name of the Lord. David distributed bread, meat, and raisin cakes to everyone present, celebrating the ark's presence in Israel's new capital. Then he gave a loaf of bread, a cake of dates, and a cake of raisins to each person in the whole crowd of Israelites, both men and women. 2 Samuel 6 verse 19. The arrival of the ark in Jerusalem not only symbolized the unification of the people, but also solidified worship of God as the central focus of Israelite life. Under David's leadership, the ark became a symbol of God's continuous presence with his people. This event paved the way for the construction of the temple, which would be completed by his son, Solomon. With the ark centralized in Jerusalem, the city became the spiritual center of Israel, a place dedicated to worship and the celebration of God's presence. After David's death, Solomon ascended to the throne and began the construction of the temple in Jerusalem, a monumental project that his father had envisioned. This temple would become the permanent dwelling place of the Ark of the Covenant, solidifying Jerusalem as the spiritual heart of Israel.